This is Mindset for Success with your host, Dr. Leslie Knudsen. Each week, she will interview women entrepreneurs to explore the unconscious psychological struggles they faced as they build their businesses and how they overcame them. Here's your host, Leslie Knudsen.
I'm so excited to introduce our next guest, Louise Spinner. Louise is a recovering talent agent with over 25 years in the artist representation arena, where she has discovered and nurtured nascent talent, as well as supported the continued growth and success of more established stars. Spinner's tenure in entertainment began immediately following her graduation from the University of Massachusetts at Amherst, with a position in programming at WBCN FM, a rock and roll station in Boston. Her record label contacts provided a logical transition into the burgeoning music video industry. And in 1992, Spinner accepted a post at Limelight in Los Angeles, a production company representing commercial and video directors. Subsequently shifting her focus to theatrical representation, Spinner's gimlet eye and strong creative vision garnered her clients such as Reese Witherspoon, Julianne Moore, and Kiefer Sutherland, as well as the discovery of breakout stars Oscar Isaac and Channing Tatum. Spinner also served on the board of Women in Film and is a founding member of the Set Up Women's Network. She lives in Los Angeles with her 3 children. Welcome, Louise.
Hey there, thank you very much. I'm so excited to be here, not just to regale you all with my stories of life in the trenches, but hopefully to get a little therapized on this, my next chapter in life as well.
Great.
With free advice. Yeah.
So, Louise, being it takes a lot to be a successful entrepreneur, female entrepreneur, and business acumen is key. But we rarely talk about those psychological challenges that women sometimes face just to achieve success. And I refer to these as those negative and sometimes persistent thoughts that can create doubt, undermine success, and certainly impact decision-making, as well as just general life, overall happiness and satisfaction. So I wonder if you could start today and tell us a little bit about your career and about yourself and your career.
Yeah, sure. And all of this will kind of dovetail nicely because, talking about imposter syndrome, I am not an entrepreneur. I mean, right. Except that, in the game of life, I represent them, I guess now to a degree, but certainly my entire business was, if you consider the individual artist as a startup, which in fact, everything from an actor to a movie, or even a commercial or a music video, it's a pitch, right? It's a pitch that you have to sell and develop and budget and distribute and publicize. So I instead of saying, oh, people are widgets, I'm going to reverse that and say, every idea, every startup is a brilliant career that needs to be strategically architected. So even though I can speak a lot from my journey as to how that became interesting to me, and the ways in which I excel at it, and then of course the things to which you refer that are my Achilles, and I think very gender specific. Well, like most kids growing up in the 80s and 90s, when music video was the next art form, and everything, music, we had I saw the invention of the Walkman, which meant you just have your own personal music, your own soundtrack to your own life. And in fact, although I elected ultimately to become an English major in college, I was fascinated with the world of MTV, with what I erroneously assumed was going to be the next big job market, music video host, VJ. And as history will show, there were regrettably only 10 or so such positions in that arena. But anything to be close to that kind of beautiful mind. I myself possessing something a little bit more, literary, but I'm certainly not specially abled, as I often see the artists who move, touch, and inspire us are. But I saw a way to translate them using my communication skill set, and thought, well, why not harness that for art and get a little commerce in there as well. So, but we didn't have the indie film market. This was I think the bellwether for the new market there was something like Usual Suspects, which is an incredibly successful theatrical release that Chris McQuarrie wrote and directed, that was done outside of the studio system. But firstly, I was the vice president of prizes as an intern, unpaid intern in the summers at WBCN, which basically meant answering a request line, stuffing posters into tubes. But I got to be the face of this agency, of this radio station, which, radio is, fairly forgiving physically. You can sound like butter. You can look like your dad. And so to have a 19, 20, 21-year-old girl, handing out bumper stickers in beach parking lots to the largely male and 18 to 25 demographic of their listenership was quite a boon. So I was able to kind of say, hey, I can sell this idea that, this station is just a party and we're all young and immortal. And it was really good to be part of seeing how branding, before branding was even a word, creates affiliation and affinity for people. And still at that time, I was just like, I just want to be around musicians. And of course, that led to a romance with a lead guitarist in a heavy metal hair band. I'm remembering this is 1985, 1986.
Right.
And I moved to New York from Boston to be with him. And shockingly, that relationship did not last. But it did get me to New York, where I was able to kind of further hone my skills. It's interesting because when you're in it as a kid and you're just kind of trying to figure out what your life is going to be. And I didn't have a vocation plan. I mean, I didn't want to be a lawyer or a doctor. And so everything else felt kind of haphazard. But when you have the perspective from 50-some odd years old, looking back, you see this somewhat inexorable pull where all your choices, while seemingly random, will all culminate in not only the job that you have, but the person who you are. And even though you didn't realize it, it was just kind of, I don't want to say manifest, but your grace and your skill sets will kind of point the way. The medium in which you deploy them may shift, but the things you're good at will be the things you're good at, in my opinion, no matter where you end up. If it's, diplomacy, you could be in politics or agenting.
So the idea that each experience kind of builds on the next.
Well, yeah, and that you can read the tea leaves on them as well, because I had no idea. I'm still thinking I'm going to be a VJ. I'm still waiting to call Martha Quinn my best friend. It's not. It's like that was my plan. The bigger picture, the more holistic look at it was, I was learning how to deal with intense personalities. I was multitasking. I was creating order out of chaos. I was using my creative resources and burgeoning charm to sell things, ideas, positions, jobs, artists. But here I am thinking, I'm in show business. That's right. I just want to be in show business. But as the talent, arguably, not the rep. But of course, as I said before, the gold rush of DJ positions never happened. Relationship ended. I went out to LA to visit my college roommate, who is now living here, which is where I am now. And it was February like this. I think it was actually 80 degrees. And having grown up and gone to school in New England, I thought, what am I freezing for? I could be here where it's warm and I know somebody. And so I called my parents and I said, sell it or burn it. I'm not coming back. I got a job at the company where my college roommate was working as a director's rep, Limelight, which was run by a man named Steve Barron, who is a director who he did the Billie Jean video for Michael Jackson.
Mm-hmm.
He did that Aha video, Take on Me, which was the first use of kind of animation and live action. And so all I knew was, hey, there were a bunch of guys wearing black with great hair, smoking. They weren't musicians, they were directors.
Mm-hmm.
So this feels familiar. I know how to be around these people. This is all purely like kind of me going off what I like, what I want to be around. And even though I couldn't direct and I couldn't act, I couldn't sing, I'm surrounded by people who can, and I have such respect and reverence for them that I can credibly tout them to non-believers or uninitiated people. But
and you were also, by the way, good at it. And you were and you were also good at it.
But here was
that kind of also set the stage for you.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh,
right.
No one likes to
the
do
queen multitasker.
Right. And also, of course, I avoid assiduously anything that requires me to fail first, which is, I think, a deficit. And I've been trying to work on that because there's very few things you look good at being a beginner at once you pass a certain age. I mean, it's a miracle I learned how to ski at 35. But you always want to lean into that which gives you the most reward and modicum of accomplishment. You know, you don't necessarily, there's this great, I don't know what it is. There's like a saying. It's like what would you do if you knew you could not fail? And for me, that's supposed to be freeing, but that paralyzes me. I'm like, I don't know. I think I fail it. If I don't know for a fact already, everything I do, it's because I know I can't fail. There's nothing I would try that I would have an inkling there might be failure, and that's a big set.
So talk to me a little bit about where the fear of failure comes in for you, if it's always sort of tied to all of your thinking.
Easy. Well, easy. This is also a little parenting lesson too, and I'm not the first one to espouse it. This mindset of constantly praising your children with superlatives. Right? I was the only product of a second marriage for both my parents who had children from their previous marriages, and we were a blended family. I was the youngest by 9 years. The eldest of the family was already married with a child by the time I was born. But the marriage was a love marriage. They had both gotten married earlier when they were younger in the first half of the century, for more pragmatic reasons. But this was a house that was, the 60s, and they were still in love. But I was this perfect child, born a perfect child, and could do no wrong. And of course, I think I was, of course, too. But instead of, if I made my bed, instead of just saying, oh, good, that's so great that you made your bed, it would come back like, what an amazing 5-year-old. She made her bed. There's nothing she can't do, the blah, blah, blah. And, years of therapy have taught me that I had somewhat anointed myself as the glue that was holding my family together, that I had to be on all the time, that it also honed my diplomacy skills and my sense of having to garner people's approval and to be constantly entertaining, or somebody would spell something in front of me or talk and interrupt me. So it gave me this idea that if I wasn't constantly being the answer to everybody's problems, that I wasn't doing my job, or that I wasn't even
being listened to.
Yeah. I had a hard time, and I'm carefully measuring my cadence now, but I have a tendency to speak quickly, not just because sometimes my thoughts are running ahead of my mouth, which is a problem, but because I was so afraid that someone older than I would just talk over me at the dinner table. If you wanted to get a word in edgewise, you had to do it when someone was taking a breath. But I realize now that, of course, the faster you talk, the quicker people lose interest. A, because many times they can't understand what you're saying, or secondly, it loses. There's a way you can make things sound more essential or vital than they really are by adding what I like to call the caesura, the weighted pause. And it's a really effective tool. I don't know, you've covered so much on this series, but there's a lot to be said about